Okay, good to see you all. I'm Sandra Jovanovic-Belotic. I'm here on the behalf of WWEN team. So I will just shortly wish you all a welcome to this workshop. I hope that you had a great conference so far and that you are excited about moving on and getting into deep within the workshops. Basically, we are still admitting people into the workshop, so we will just go through some technical things before I give the word to our presenters today, to Carmel and Owen. So Owen, if you can please just show this slide. I guess that most of you are quite familiar with the Zoom applications. It's our new reality now. But just to make sure that everyone can find their way through Zoom, please look at this slide. You are all automatically muted upon entry because that's the good thing to do when we have such a big group. But I invite you that if you want to make some contributions, to turn on your microphone, and you will see the small icon of a microphone on the bottom of your screen. You can do the same with camera. I'm really happy that I can see some of you and have a little bit of the experience of a live event if we can all see each other. Yeah, so I also invite everyone to turn on the camera if they feel comfortable enough to do it. You can see who entered the workshop so far. I also invite you to use the chat option and to ask any questions that you have, and you can also say hello in a chat just to start that process. I will make the first one. You can always react by clicking on the emoticons or change into the speaker view if you want to see more clearly who is speaking. So yeah, in case that you experience any problems with the technical part, also feel free to write in a chat and I'll try to answer you. Okay, still people are arriving. I will admit them into the workshop on the way. So yes, I would like to, again, to wish you all welcome to our workshop. And as you know, we have two presenters, Carmel Donnelly and Owen O'Neill from Ireland. They will be talking about developing a shared protocol of cooperation between probation and community domestic violence intervention programs in Ireland. The challenges and the opportunities. We had the chance to hear a little bit about it during the panel discussion, and I'm sure that we will hear a bit more during the workshop. So I would hand it over to Owen and to Carmel to introduce themselves and to start with the workshop.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Carmel Donnelly from Probation Service in Ireland, and I am an assistant principal in the service for more years than I care to remember, 20 plus at this stage, and I have lead responsibility for domestic violence policy and practice in the Probation Service. And I'm also a member of the CEP Europris expert group.
Hi everyone, my name is Owen O'Neill. I manage the Move Ireland service in Ireland. I've been working in the field of domestic violence for about 4 years only. Prior to that, I would have worked extensively in the field of addictions. So that's a little bit about me. So if we're gonna head on, so Carmel, I'll change this slide and let you take the first few.
Sure, okay. Okay, so there's a little bit of repetition of what you might have heard earlier in the panel discussion, so bear with us. But I'll just start by saying, I suppose, that we are running a program called Choices in Ireland across the NGOs, Move and Mend, and Probation, in the Probation Service as well. We've one court-mandated group work program which is based in one county, and we may plan to extend that in due course, but that's the only one we have currently. So this is the nationally agreed domestic violence programme. It is overseen by a coordination group in Justice and by the Department of Justice of overall responsibility, and they lead out on our national strategy on domestic, sexual and gender-based violence, which next year, 2021, is due for revision. We will have a new strategy going forward then. But within that strategy, one of the key actions is the development and rollout of perpetrator programs in Ireland and whereabout. So Movement and Probation, as I say, are on a coordination group or a steering group in the Department of Justice, which is why I suppose we've had the groundwork already laid for building a relationship for the development of our interagency protocol, which we're talking about today. So I suppose another piece of good useful groundwork has been the fact that we all feel that a multi-agency integrated type approach is beneficial when we're working with perpetrators, because it is such a complex field with so many service-generated risks that may arise. It is the best way to try and manage these situations. So that's what we are doing at the moment in terms of the ongoing contact, relationship building between the NGOs and ourselves and the victim services. The protocol, I suppose, was seen to be beneficial for both the NGOs and the probation service, in that for the NGOs, they would have a constant stream of referrals to their programs. Also for probation, clearly, because we don't run much in the line of group work for perpetrators, we would have a service, a treatment program available to us in the community. Probation officers do some one-to-one work with offenders, with domestic violence perpetrators, but groups, there's only one court-mandated group at the moment, right? So it is certainly helpful for us to have that referral stream in the community. Clearly, that commitment to rehabilitation is there between all the organisations, and to work in partnership, and having that relationship over a period of time has helped generate the trust needed to deal with the challenges that have arisen as we move out in terms of working together, because it's not necessarily straightforward. Through that, we try and look at working on this service-generated risk. Some of it was raised earlier in terms of the victim issues that can arise. How can we work safely with perpetrators while maintaining victim safety, for instance? How we can try and deal with victim information. Probation Service, in the course of our assessment, would use the ZARA assessment tool, but we interview the victims, or we give the victim an opportunity to participate in the assessment process, which means we get direct information from victims in some situations, and it's how we manage that in a safe way, so that we're not putting them at further risk, and we're not breaching confidentiality either. Is something we've had to build in for ourselves and in our protocols as well. Obviously, there are risks as well in terms of just men and their behaviours and emotional regulation as they go through a programme as well. It can be quite difficult as well, the issues that are raised for them, and clearly can cause risk issues for the victims, particularly if it's in a relationship with the man. So that is something that we needed to build in terms of practice, mainly by developing those links with the victim support services, having that very tight, so that they could take good care of the victim, and issues could be flagged that the victim may need to be aware of in terms of sensitivities, or just a emotional outburst by the man, for instance, that she would be aware that this is coming up and that it may be difficult for her in the home context. So to support her around that, for instance, is some of the issues that have had to be dealt with. So the final piece then obviously is that we're there as NGOs and statutory organisations to support and challenge, and make men accountable for their behaviour through their engagement in the domestic violence programme. And probation officers will build this into their case management planning processes, and their reports to court will make recommendations around men partaking, if deemed suitable, in perpetrator programmes. Okay. So the aim of the protocol then, just to sum up, I suppose, is this more effective case management of risk. So that we're tighter about sharing of information, we do it safely, we're DVBR compliant, We are victim aware, and we manage the victim safety issues as well as the individual perpetrator case management. So there are a number of sensitive issues we need to take care of when we're working with the man. We also need to ensure that our referrals are appropriate to the referral to these perpetrator programs. And I suppose to begin with, the probation officer, as they're the referral agent, they will have to do an assessment. They will see if the man meets the basic requirements for suitability for the program, as in admitting some degree of responsibility for their actions, and that can be mentioned earlier. Motivation can be lacking sometimes, and particularly if they are coming from the court system. I suppose they have mixed motivation because they're under a bit of pressure through the court system and feel that they have to comply. So it may not be purely in their own, purely from their own point of view that they see the value of partaking in a treatment program. We hope that in time that comes as they actually engage in the program and as probation officers work with them and support them through a program. But there's a bit of work to do on the motivational piece, so to ensure that the referrals are appropriate. They also need to be stable enough, as mentioned earlier as well, to engage in a challenging treatment program. So stable in terms of mental health and addiction issues, for instance. Homelessness can impact as well. So there are a multiplicity of issues there that need to be just to partake in a program. Owen might refer to that later, the complexities that arise for them on that front, but certainly something the probation officers are aware of. We hope also through the protocol and developing this information sharing piece that there will be a better outcome for the clients and obviously for the service providers as well, but that the clients will feel that there's a joined up approach, a wraparound service available that will take them through the rehabilitation process. The difficulties that arise usually result where agencies are working in silos. So we feel that the joined up approach does certainly help and breaks down barriers, clarifies roles, responsibilities, etc. So that's the last point then. It's just reiterating that point, I suppose, is that we are streamlining that exchange of information and making it clear cut as to who from the NGO side of the house and from probation side of the house has what roles they have and what responsibilities each staff member has in terms of a referral to a treatment program and the case management by the probation officer and what that looks like. Okay. Owen, do you want to?
Okay. Yeah, just to say really this wording on this slide is actually directly from the protocol. So I suppose it's very clear to staff working across all services, the actions that are required, from both services. From a Move Ireland and Men point of view, certainly probation would be a significant provider. You're probably talking about 20 to 30% of referrals to both services would be from probation. So they're a very important referral link, hence the need for a protocol such as this. So really in terms of our role at the assessment stage, Move Ireland and Mend, when we get the referral, we may need additional information, and that would be really just a telephone call to the actual probation officer and just talking through the details of the referral form if it's not clear on the referral form. Then we would undertake a suitability assessment prior to accepting the client onto the Choices programme. And really this is where I suppose issues of motivation, issues of acceptance of responsibility are really tested, because I suppose the man may be saying certain things to the probation officer, but when he arrives at our door, it's a different story. He doesn't know why he's there. He's minimising the extent of the abuse. So there may be a bit of to and fro, and he may not even turn up for the appointment. So really that's where it's critical and very important to have that good link with the probation officer, because basically we can go back and let the probation officer know whether they've turned up and what they're saying. And that then may be a role for the probation officer then to step in and maybe do more motivational work, or we may actually set up a meeting with between the client, the coordinator, and the probation officer. Once the client is deemed to be suitable, we will then just go through the normal process of contacting the partner support service, getting the details of the partner, offering that support to them, and then really finally getting the client to sign the information sharing consent form. So we are very clear that there's limited confidentiality. Obviously, it's a therapeutic relationship that we want to establish with the man, but at the same time there are limits to the confidentiality, and we're very clear around what we will be reporting back to the probation officer. So Carmel, I'll let you.
Yeah, sure. A question there, which was if about a third of the referrals are from probation, where did the rest come from? And I'm sure Owen would concur that I suppose a number of them would be self-referrals. I don't know the percentages. A number would come from the child protection of the social services, social work departments. I don't know if there's any more there, Owen.
Mental health, addiction services, relationship counselling services, GPs, primary care, but certainly family and childcare services and probation and self would be the main three areas really.
Okay. I'll continue on then. So just in relation to the probation officer's role then, I suppose we had to be trying to be clear about what is the role of the probation officer in this interagency arrangement. In the first instance, as we know, the probation officer is they're part of the criminal justice system. They're the officers of the court. So they would have received a referral or a request for a referral or an assessment from the courts. A judge will look for a pre-sanction report to see what can be done in relation to treatment or what supervision options are to the court as a sentencing option if deemed appropriate by the probation officer. So within that process, the probation officer will conduct the ZARA assessment, the spousal assault risk assessment instrument, and will develop out of that a case management plan in order to manage the man if he were to come on supervision. So we would make a proposal to the court saying, yes, this man is deemed suitable for probation and supervision would be deemed appropriate and could benefit from it, but we would ask for certain conditions to be applied to a court order. One may be that the individual engages with a treatment program, such as the one provided by Move or Mend. So that would be included, and we will work towards referring the man into the treatment program, obviously. So we will provide, in addition to filling in the referral form, we will also supply a copy of the ZARA. And this doesn't normally happen with other outside agencies because of GDPR, but because the facilitators are actually trained, the program facilitators are trained in the ZARA instrument, we are in a position to share the instrument with them. There are findings from that instrument in relation to particular clients with the program providers. So that would be unique because most other organizations obviously haven't that commonality with us. So that enables us to do that. Clearly that enables the program provider then to pick out particular dynamic risk factors that may need to be addressed or the facilitators may need to be attuned to during the course of the treatment program. And clearly it's also matters that the probation officer may need to continue to support as the man goes through the program. Other factors that were mentioned earlier in terms of maybe addiction issues, mental health, home may need to be continually be addressed as the man goes through a program or prior to the man being able to go through a program, because they're so chaotic at the time they may not be capable of engaging with a program. So we have to try and remove those obstacles, and that's part of the probation officer's role in the first instance. So assuming the man is capable and stable enough and motivated enough to go on a program, we will then send in the referral form along with the ZARA. The probation officer requests the client to sign our own probation service information sharing consent form, which stands in its own right. And we have a bit of a challenge in that the referral form for Move and Mend asks the offender to actually sign. It's to be signed by the offender. probation officers have been a little challenged by that, because we would like to maybe share as full as information as possible on the referral form, but if the man is going to be reading that and signing off on it, I think probation officers sometimes feel a little bit constrained from doing that. We use Zara too, by the way. There's a question there. And so that is a challenge. So therefore we may follow up with a phone call rather than providing full information that might be challenging, might be sensitive, might be reacted to by more denial or entrenched denial by the man. Might also contain information that the victim has given us that during the course of our assessment that we do not want to share with the man for safety reasons. So there are a lot of sensitivities we have to manage and navigate carefully. So we have our own consent form in terms of sharing that information in other means, through other means, be it by telephone contact or the tripartite meeting, which we say we try, where possible, is to set up a tripartite meeting with the facilitator, the man and the probation officer prior to starting the programme, perhaps later on during the programme and maybe towards the end to see how progress is evolving. But that enables us to share more information with the programme provider. If the man is deemed unsuitable, obviously, as Owen would have said, there can be motivation issues with the man, and we as probation officers then will try and continue to do some work to facilitate the man to be suitable for the programme. Work on his what's in it for him, for instance, as we said earlier. It could be that he'd be a better parent and he will hold on to his children, that he'll have better, more healthy relationships. So that's what we find in terms of deeming him more suitable or preparing the man to be more suitable.
Yeah, so in terms of risk management, which is the other major piece around working with these clients, risk management is really about timely and good communication between ourselves and probation. So as already explained, we were very clear with the clients around what information we will share with probation. In terms of managing risk, I suppose client attendance and I suppose progress within the program is very important. And I suppose if we feel that the client is either missing sessions consistently or is really just he's turning up but not really contributing, we will then have a discussion with the probation officer around what to do about that. We would never just discharge a client without first talking to probation. And I think that's really critical. And we would also discuss with them, well, look, when would be the right time to discharge a client, because that may have implications for the safety of their partner as well. So there were instances where we had to ensure that the partner was out of the house or had left the man's house before we discharged the man or before the man was taken back to court. So all of that needs very good, timely and clear communication, and it has worked really, really well, I would have to say. In terms of the feedbacks, just the last piece, that is really the information that we would feed back on. So we don't really include any subjective information. It's information which we can stand over, that isn't based on an assessment that can maybe be challenged in court. So it really is around their attendance, their level of participation, and whether there's been any critical incidents. And obviously the man would be very clear and aware that those incidents would have been reported. So that's really our responsibilities, I suppose, in terms of risk management within the protocol.
Okay, and from a probation point of view, I suppose probation officers we deal with risk all of the time. That's part of our job in terms of dealing with, we engage in risk assessment process with offenders across the spectrum of offences, and risk management is part and course of the work that probation officers have to do. And within that, we try and case manage as effectively as we can and engage the relevant services to enable us to do that, and engage also in other multi-agency support processes to join up those pieces to make it easier for us, because I don't think any one agency can do it on their own. It is much better to have a holistic approach. I suppose there are possible service risks that meant that we had to specify, who has responsibility for what in the protocol. One of the risks, of course, is the confidentiality breaches that could happen, because we have victim information. How do we hold that information in terms of data protection? It's third-party information. How do we share it with the NGOs, if it's appropriate to share with the NGOs? So it has to be under data protection. The sharing of information has to be purposeful, and it has to be necessary for the purpose for which we're sharing in the first place, and limited to only what is required to do the job. So we really have to be careful around that, and only share what's required. And obviously the siloed approach can cause difficulties as well. So from this point of view, we had to make it very clear that the probation officer remains the primary case manager in the cases that we refer to the NGOs for the treatment programme. And we in turn will be reporting to court as to how the man is progressing in the course of his programme. We don't get into what the man is discussing in detail on a programme. It's basic information for the court in terms of he is attending the programme, he is maybe in week whatever, 5, 10, whatever it is on the programme, and he's successfully engaging in the programme. That's about it. So we do not get into the details of what's coming up on a confidential basis in the programme, in the court context, because I think that would mitigate against the work of the perpetrator programme providers, make it very difficult for them to build that therapeutic with the client. So we were conscious of that as well. We will set up, as I said earlier, a tripartite meeting if deemed necessary, so that we can get into more detailed sharing of information in advance or in tandem with the referral form. And that will enable us maybe to be freer. It could be a telephone call, and it's probably more virtual calls now, be it telephone or video links now with the facilitators or the coordinators of Move and Mend. And we will see where that goes in terms of if there's follow-up actions that the probation officer needs to work on to maybe remove obstacles for the client if necessary, or deal with motivation issues if necessary as well. So we will also inform the Move and Mend then if there's any circumstances that have changed in the offender's life, because we know a lot of these clients, a lot of probation clients in particular, are very chaotic. And they're often high risk, and this is only one of the issues that's going on in their lives in terms of domestic violence being an issue. So it's communicate those complexities to the providers as well. He may have become homeless overnight, or he may have got new charges in court and may have to go to court the next day, and that might be a reason why the man is missing his treatment programme on that particular day. So there are issues we need to stay on top of and communicate accordingly with the programme providers so that everybody's aware of the complexities and can support the man through the programme. And clearly we will try and address the non-attendance issues then if they come up, because the probation officer is the case manager, so they will hold the man. Unlike maybe with some of the other referrals that Move and Mend may get, you might find that the social services will refer the case and drop the case then soon after, because the man is now being dealt with by some other. The man is not their client. The man is the probation officer's client. So that's what the difference is. Whereas the woman or the children may be social services clients. So it's different in that sense. But we hold the man and we retain the role of case manager throughout the programme. So even if an order was to expire prior to the treatment programme ending, we would be more likely to open the case or keep it open voluntarily until the man got through the treatment programme, just to support to get through it and to make sure that he performs as well as he can on that programme.
Okay, so Carmel had mentioned in the panel discussions that probation are undertaking a review of the protocol. So a short survey monkey really has gone out to Move and Men staff and also probation. I'm presenting today the findings from the Move Ireland and Men staff. So you can see overall it's a very positive working relationship, which is very good from our point of view that this works and it's valuable. Interestingly enough, in terms of outcomes, really the jury's still out there really, in that you have sort of half and half people saying that outcomes are better if clients are referred by probation, and you have another half really neither agreeing or disagreeing with the statement on it. I think that is around probably related to the third point, which is really around complexity and high risk, in that a lot of the clients that we get from probation would have a range of needs. So there, I suppose we're starting from a lower base in terms of trying to effect change within that population. Some of the clients would be going to us because the court is mandating them to do it, when really it's a struggle for us to try and break through and get them more motivated and to a place where they genuinely want to change for themselves, as opposed to the court wanting to change. In terms of the third question there, very clearly that probation clients are more complex and high risk. And I suppose, as John mentioned briefly in the panel discussion, a lot of our staff are sessional workers, not full-time staff. And I think certainly if that trend was to continue in terms of receiving more and more complex and high-risk staff, there's certainly an issue for us in terms of having more resources and full-time staff really to manage the risks more and to intervene in a more thorough way with this client group. In terms of whether referrals are more appropriate, again, mixed reaction. And I think as well, certainly from my point of view, I think that relates also to the particular client group that are coming from probation. Court mandated clients may feel that they have to go, but really when it's put to the test where they're having to make a commitment to attend for assessment, to attend for one-to-ones prior to group program, it can be a struggle. I'm not too sure how, what percentage of cases we have to go back to probation and get them to do further work, but it would be fairly significant in terms of really needing to motivate this, this client group to engage in a more meaningful way. I would say certainly we do not get referrals from probation where the predominant issue is addiction or is mental health issues. And that would be certainly a factor that we would see from other referrals coming in, when very, very clearly the person needs to deal with their addiction first before they would come here, to us. So I think probation are very good at knowing, look, what is the priority issue that needs to be tackled first. So look, that was really just there are a few comments which sort of adds a little bit more of a flavour to that. It's quite a busy slide, so you can just sort of read them for yourselves. But certainly the first First comment's very, very positive. The second comment is quite interesting in that I suppose some of our staff would feel that writing reports for court undermines men's motivation to do the program. So I suppose that's a wider debate really around whether NGOs should be linked in with statutory services, or whether it's better to only take self-referrals from men. I suppose what I would say is that even if a man self-refers, there's always some pressure coming from somewhere, whether it's a statutory service or whether it is their partner or family or something. But certainly that would be an internal debate within our organisation anyway. Last couple there, I suppose that really reflects most of the communication tends to be between the coordinators that work 9 to 5 as opposed to the facilitators that tend to work at night. And again, John had mentioned that in the panel discussion. And again, it's much more challenging for facilitators to have the time to talk directly to probation officers, because many of them have their own 9 to 5 jobs. So it's really important that our communicators or coordinators really capture the essence of what's happening with the man and are able to convey that over to probation. So that's really our main inputs. I don't know whether, we're going to take questions after the breakout, aren't we, Sandra? So these were the 3 questions which we thought about that might be useful for you to discuss in your breakout groups. So really, what are the opportunities for developing a multi-agency response within your service and country? What do you think the challenges would be in developing such a protocol? And then practically, I suppose, what would be the next step that you might personally take for developing a protocol with probation in your country?